Wilson!
Happy Halloween!
Happy Halloween.
So usually for Halloween we do a couple's costume. This is my husband Daniel. Usually we do stuff from when we were kids, like Mario Kart and Carmen Sandiego and the Muppets and stuff like that. But this year we really wanted to make use of his hair. He's been growing it out for a couple of years now, or over a year. So before he cuts it back off, we wanted to make use of his hair and his beard. So we tried to find a couple's costume with a character with long hair like that, and we decided on Castaway. So Daniel is Tom Hanks, whatever his name was, and I am Wilson. I videoed pieces of making the costume because I always like to make homemade costumes. And I will admit that I wasn't as passionate about this Halloween project as I am usually about my costumes. Just because Castaway isn't one of my favorite movies or anything. Usually it's something I loved when I was a kid, so I'm more passionate about it. But I still did home make them, so I'm going to show you guys how I made them in case you want to make a Castaway costume at home. So first up, we have Tom Hanks. This is our Tom Hanks. So I went to Value Village and searched for a red shirt and pants that were about this color. This is the color they were in the movie. Stuff at Value Village is so expensive. But I found the cheapest ones I could that matched this because I was about to destroy them. And I picked those up. And the first thing I did was cut the pants into shorts because that's how Tom Hanks did it. I suppose I could have just bought shorts, but this is just more authentic. And then I used a cheese grater. I Googled it, and cheese grater was an idea that came up for making zombie clothes. So I used a cheese grater on the fabric, and that worked really well. It made these scuff marks that are really kind of more natural looking than scissor marks or something like that would have been. But then I also used scissors so that I could get some actual holes like this. And then I used the cheese grater on the edge of the holes in order to make them look more natural. The cheese grater worked really well on the shirt, more than it did on the pants. They were tougher pants. I guess you should buy this brand because they're strong pants. But it did things, the cheese grater did stuff like that. Did stuff like that to the shirt, which looks really cool and like it's actually worn out. I also wanted the clothes and the shoes to look dirty, so I dyed them in tea, but I didn't try super hard, and I don't know if I did it the wrong way. I didn't put a ton of effort into it, but it didn't work very well. In fact, I don't think it did a single thing, and that was a waste of time. So I rinsed it and I decided I would try and dirty it up with mud. So I just soaked dirt and water, and apparently that doesn't make what I would call mud because that did not work very well, and the kind of brown liquid didn't work very well. So I just poured it in a pile and I poured the dirt water on top of it and let it soak overnight and hoped it stained it. And then I hung them to dry. I didn't wash them again after that. And then when they were dry, I just brushed the dirt off. And I mean, it kind of worked. There's some stains. Not really on the pants at all. The color didn't work, but on the shirt, I don't know, it did an okay job. It's really light colored, but I think that's okay because he was in sand, so I feel like it's now sand stains, and that worked out. It's not as stained as I wanted it to be for how much work I put into it. So I don't know. Don't ask me how you stain clothes. Moral of the story. And then his shoes. Tom Hanks couldn't fit, I think he couldn't fit in the pair of shoes that he found, so he had to cut the toes out, so we tried to do that look. Daniel just already had this pair of shoes, so I didn't have to buy one, but it was really long and pointy, so we had to saw off the end of the shoe to make it look more normal, but then we cut off the top just with an X-Acto knife, and then I went with a cheese grater, and I cheese grated the shoes, just like I did for the clothing, and then I also soaked the shoes in a bag of dirt water. And that also did absolutely nothing. And then I had to somehow get all that dirt off of the shoes, which was hard. And there was a lot of dirt in our bathtub when I was shaking these out. And then once he put this on today, I put a bunch of brown makeup, just brown eyeshadow on his face and his chest to look like he was dirty. And I guess I could also put it on your clothes, but oh well, we're running late. Spin for us, Tom Hanks. And up next, we've got Wilson. So for Wilson, I used an exercise ball that I actually already had from a past costume. We were Carmen Sandiego and the world, as in where in the world is Carmen Sandiego. So for the world, for Daniel that time, I bought an exercise ball from a thrift store, and I paper mache'd that. So I used the exercise ball again for Wilson. So a while ago, I was at a thrift store and saw this instant paper mache, which I've never used before, and picked it up. So I had that sitting around and I used that as the first layer. I didn't put a ton of effort into researching how you use instant paper mache. I mean, I did research it. I watched some videos, but I used the instant paper mache and I had all these clumps in it that I seemed to not be able to get out, so it was really bumpy, and it also wasn't enough to cover the whole thing. So when I was at Value Village, I saw these receipt paper rolls, and I picked those up because I thought, hey, they're already in strips, perfect for paper mache, and they're white, which is the color of Wilson. That ended up being a good idea. I did just 3 layers of the receipt paper as paper mache using just Elmer's glue and water. The way that I did it is I did instant paper mache one night, the next night I did 1 layer, the next night I did 1 layer. So I did 1 layer of the paper mache every single day so that it would dry in between and be really hard, and I wouldn't have to wait for it to dry forever afterwards. After 3 layers, you couldn't see the gray anymore, and it kind of hid some of the bumps, so I was pretty happy with how that was. I decided not to even paint it over, so you can see where the receipt paper, the lines are in between them. So I probably could have covered that up a bit with white paint, but it's already the color white, and I thought, good enough. And then I drew lines with pencils on it to make it look like a volleyball. I did a really subpar job at doing that, admittedly, but whatever, I did it. And then I went over it with a gray marker to make them stand out a little bit more. And then I just took red paint and I just eyeballed Wilson's face over here with the red paint, looking at a picture of Wilson. I just eyeballed it, painted him on, and I thought he looked good enough. Oh, and then I also took a black dot to Wilson's nose, because that's where the pinhole for blowing up the volleyball was. It was a little black one right in the center of his nose in the movie. I just took a photo of the Wilson logo and printed it out and cut it out and used it as a stencil, took it off, and then filled it in so that I would have the Wilson on the bum. So I measured what I thought was the biggest part of my body and kind of made a circle around that size and cut it out. It was pretty hard to cut. Turned out that wasn't big enough. So I cut it again, that wasn't big enough, I cut it again. I had to do it a couple times to make it big enough to actually get on and off easily. And then he had some sort of hair near the end of the movie sticking out of the top of him when he was busted. That was kind of tan colored, some sort of leaves that he had found. I tried a few thrift stores looking for something like it and I couldn't find anything. I tried the dollar store. I really didn't want to spend a bunch of money at Michael's just for Wilson's hair, because I was kind of on the edge of whether or not I was even going to do the hair. So instead, I decided to get thrifty and go around my house and on my deck and find all of the trees that I have killed, which is too many because I'm really bad at keeping plants alive. And I took off their dead twigs and just created a pile. We also had these planters that had these big bamboo rods in them, but those flowers died as well, so we had that bamboo sitting around. So we also sawed some bamboo up. So I just drilled holes all throughout the top of Wilson, made them about the size of all the sticks, and stuck the sticks in. And then on the inside, I hot glued the sticks in so they would kind of sit at the angle that I wanted them to and not fall through. That worked pretty well, and then I also taped them to each other just to give them a little bit more security, basically. The smaller twigs and stuff I found from trees that have died in my home, I just glued to the bigger ones, to the bamboo and to the sticks. And then once I got the sticks in, some of them dip inwards like this, so they kind of make it tighter. So if you're doing this, I would recommend making it much wider than you think you're going to need, because that'll make it easier. And I dropped a bunch of twigs trying to put this on just now, and Daniel had to help me get it on. It's kind of a difficult thing. It's a scenario. And I don't have time because we're going to the party, but I also would have made the bottom part down here bigger as well so that I can lift it up so I can sit down when I'm there, because I don't know how I'm going to sit down when I'm there. I'm stuck standing all night, basically. And then with the twigs around the edge, I also made the ones on the sides shorter, and I put less there in general, so they're shorter here, so that there was a place for my arms to sit on the side. And then I just had some kind of hemp string hanging around, so I just poked some holes with the X-Acto knife and roughly measured where these should be to be straps. So that's it. That's how I made Tom Hanks and Wilson from Castaway. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you've ever made a Castaway costume before. I would love to see a picture of it.
Wilson!